All right, let's get going. Thank you everyone for being here, and especially my dear panel. Thank you for taking the time. I know the craziness probably already started for you with all the preparations and the university recruiting season. So I do appreciate you taking the hour to be here to share some of the learnings and spread some of the best practices of how to do this well. So kick it off. Let's just do a quick round of introductions and maybe who you are, what you do, where you work, and in particular why you work there, because I think these days it's very much a deliberate choice of being at a certain company. So I'd love to hear your take. Anybody who wants to go first? I'll pick. How about Nicole? You kick us off.
Sure, I was just about to volunteer. Thanks, Tigran. Hello everyone. I'm Nicole Perzigian. I am with Zoom Communications, and I'm the Global Emerging Talent Program Leader here at Zoom. I'm really excited to be here today to kind of share the beginning of our journey here at Zoom. I was so excited to join the organization to be the leader to build their first ever early in career talent program. So launching and building from scratch, everything from recruitment best practices all the way to program excellence. And it's a global scope. So I'm excited to share more with you all. And thank you for having me here today.
Thanks, Nicole. Tracy, you want to go next?
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Jordan. I am the early career talent acquisition partner at Asana. I've been here for almost 3 years in August, and I work on everything involved in the intern program and the new grad program, everything from hiring them to building out the programming when they get here. As I mentioned, I've been at Asana for almost 3 years, and it's been an amazing ride. And I chose Asana originally because of the small company, great culture vibe. And that's something that we practice every day with our values, with our experience, and everything is just really amazing. And I feel very welcome there and a lot of impact.
Love it. Awesome. And then last but not least, Cindy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Love, Nicole, what you said, and also you, Tracy. Honored to be part of this panel. I'm Cindy Loggins. I head up the Global University Recruiting and Programs team here at eBay. I've been at eBay for almost 4 years now. Similar story to Tracy with Asana. I joined eBay because I was looking for a company that had some awesome people, but ultimately at the end and at the core of their day-to-day business was giving back to the communities that they support. And so that resonated so strongly with me where I am in my career today, and being able to help the organizations across the board amplify their hiring needs of early in career talent.
Love it. Well, for anyone who doesn't know me, hasn't met me before, I'm Tigran Sloyan. I'm the co-founder CEO of CodeSignal. I guess I can answer the question of like why I started it, not why I joined it, because started it. The mission of helping the world go beyond resumes, the belief that talent is very much equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And we need to be able to really find talent in a more direct way versus relying on resumes or proxies. And an incredible ride, partnering with some really amazing people and companies to make that mission a reality. So let's go right down to questions. I think this past, 12 months to almost, a year and a half, really, it's crazy. Sometimes it feels like a couple of years, so I have to remember the timeline. But with COVID, I feel like tons of things have changed, especially last year with I'm sure none of you could do any of the career fairs and it had to be all virtual. This year, maybe some of it is opening up. So I'd love to kick us started by talking about what's changed really, right? Like as you think about university recruiting, early talent recruiting from previous years or last year to this year, what is different? How is it different? What's the biggest change actually from your perspective? And maybe let's go reverse order.
Sure, I can start.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, so much is different. And, I flipped my mentality a little bit, Tigran, and I'm not calling them challenges anymore. I'm calling them opportunities, because we've been in it for a year and a half, right? Like it's been challenging, for others than perhaps myself. But I mean, I have to take a step back and think about the blessings that we have had as individuals, right? And continuing to stay healthy. And I think for me, from a leader perspective for eBay, COVID gave me an opportunity to take a step back and rethink how we do university recruiting. It made me realize that in certain aspects of what we do, they're very archaic. The way that I was thinking about it was very archaic. And so, in a nutshell, I think what the different platforms that are out there, and us not being able to have our hooves or our stilettos physically on campus, it made me take a step back and say, how do I showcase the opportunities that we have here at eBay to every human that's interested in learning more about eBay? It doesn't matter what school you go to. It doesn't matter what state you live in. Within the United States, it doesn't matter what country in the world you live in. What I wanted to try and do is make sure that anybody that raised their hand and said, I'm interested in hearing more, had an opportunity. So much of what we had done unto this point was driven by where we could physically be present. And depending on the size of one's team, that could limit your outreach as well, right? Because you cannot have two of us at one place at the same time. And so I saw that as an opportunity. It leveled the playing field, I think, for a lot of us that might be mid to smaller size companies. It allowed us to be creative from a digital aspect, to showcase, each of our own and what we were proud of. It allowed more people internally to participate in that effort, because I didn't need to take them out of their day-to-day business, out of having to leave home to be able to go partner with me at a certain campus. So, I think a lot of interesting things are going to be, shown in the next year from all of us, all three of us, and a lot of our peers as well, as we continue to navigate through this. But at the end of the day, for us, it was a huge opportunity to be able to get, more applicants interested in the roles that we had open.
Absolutely. Tracy, how about you? What's the change?
Yeah. And ditto everything that Cindy said. I think being in university, it's like the biggest change we've all felt and are dealing with is like going remote. I mean, I remember sitting back in June about this time last year and being like, okay, well, let's just redo everything we were about to do. But yeah, Cindy, I love that you put it as like they're all opportunities. And I mean, honestly, in this world where we don't know when we're going to be able to fly and get to career fairs safely, like it's really been a chance for us to innovate. I think that one of our biggest challenges in wrapping up in like the virtual world is just building those connections with the students and getting them to feel like the amazing Asana culture that I'm going to keep talking about. It's, that's something we bring a lot of our students on site. We bring engineers to them, and we bring, so much amazing things when we visit them. And it's really hard to mimic that when you're virtual and sitting on a Zoom hangout. I've told so many interns about all of our cool values and everything that we live for. And I know you're only listening to it. And it's so hard to mimic that on a Zoom environment. The other kind of challenge that we've been facing is similar to you were saying, Cindy, and it has become like an opportunity, is like really building our brand awareness. Asana, we've had a lot of amazing growth in the last few years. And so our brand is getting up there, but we can use all the help we can get in terms of continuing to go on campus and continuing to host workshops and whatnot. And it's being really, creative and innovative with how to continue growing our brand without physically being there. So it's really challenged myself and marketing in terms of like creating, virtual assets and blog posts and whatnot to just like keep circulating throughout, the internet, and just keep kind of building that brand and keep making sure that like Asana is one of the first companies that our students are thinking about.
That makes sense. And I guess it's hard to imagine the last year and a half without Zoom. But Nicole, how kind of
How
how are you
fitting.
seeing it over at Zoom?
No, and it's interesting, right? When we think about Zoom and what changed between, the year before the pandemic and now, this program didn't exist, right? So just to give a little foundation, I was brought in, gosh, I think I'm on month 8 and I count every minute of it because we literally launched an amazing program here at Zoom for interns and new grads. And it's all the way from, again, best of breed, best practices around our recruitment function and building that brand, and around the programming aspects as well once they come on board. So it's definitely been a whirlwind, and there's been a huge appetite and such advocacy here at Zoom for an early talent program. So that part has been really exciting. So for Zoom, not too much to compare and contrast, but I echo Cindy and Tracy. I mean, you're so right on everything that you pointed out. With my prior experience, right? I was at another organization when it was like, what, we got to pivot, we got to change to a virtual, how are we going to do this, right? And I think it's those things that some of the others outlined. I've noticed that you can, communicate and connect virtually, right? And you just have to make sure you're implementing some of those important elements, right? That you can get your culture across. Why does someone want to come to Zoom? You're right, Tigran, everyone knows who Zoom is, but what we're trying to prove is why should you come here? Why are we an employer of choice? So challenge is, how do we do that in a virtual environment? So we're getting really creative on how we do our outreach, how we show up and get our amazing job opportunities out there to show students, that you can come here and make an impact and, continue to change the world and what Zoom does every day, but at the same time, be very hands-on and, do some great things. So I think those are, probably first and foremost for us, the outreach, it is a broader audience, and that's when I think does work. You get to do some of that pre-homework, identify your top candidates and, the fit for the organization, and have more intimate conversations in that way with the virtual experience. So that's been really nice. But I mean, can't say I don't look forward to reviving that human interaction, whatever that may look like in the future, that will for sure hopefully go back to normal, but it's been really fun getting Zoom out there and showcasing all of the great programming and the jobs that we're going to have this coming fall.
Absolutely. And thinking of that change, right? So like before the pandemic, it was very career fair heavy, and you had to kind of select specific schools. There's a specific travel schedule you've got to go get done. Now I feel like, as Cindy pointed out, it's an opportunity to actually go broader, go to more potential schools, touch more students, get more people involved. But it's still a massive volume challenge, and there's, I'm sure, way more students in schools and different programs that you can recruit from. So I guess, Cindy, from your side, like, how do you go about choosing, right? Like, where do you recruit from? What's that strategy then?
Yeah, prior to the pandemic, we had our list of core schools that we partnered with, along with a handful of external organizations as well. For some of them, we'll continue to. We have some really, really great relationships there, so we'll continue to partner with them both locally at the school level, but also nationally at the partnership level. But it's interesting, Tigran. I've started to take a slightly different approach, and I'm sure a lot of my peers on this call, along with Tracy and Nicole, perhaps have thought about this too. It's the notion of being school agnostic. Why does it have to be one school? Why does it have to be 5 schools? Again, it doesn't matter if Cindy went to Boston College, which I did with my undergrad, or that Cindy went to some university that's still an accredited university in some nook and cranny that I never would have set foot in as an employee at eBay. And so, for me, again, I think it switched my thinking, at least as a leader, and for my team to say, we need to have certain partnerships because we do research partnerships. There are certain technologies that we are working on with with schools and professors and in certain colleges and universities that we will continue to keep. We will forever do that. But to me, it's the notion of I have an opportunity to help my team. Again, what Tracy and Nicole said, message out, almost stand on top of that mountain and message out that I've got these opportunities. And if you're interested, I would love an opportunity to chat with you. And so again, it's a little mix of both. So in a long-winded answer, Tigran, we're choosing some schools, but because of past relationships and research relationships and opportunities that we have there. But I'm really looking to try and be as school agnostic as possible because I want the best talent out there. So if you are a school that's listening to this and you have students that you think could be a great fit for eBay or Asana or Zoom, my peers on this call, then let's talk and help us amplify the positions that we have. Because it's really about finding not only the best talent, right? It doesn't always have to be the smartest individual, Tigran, but the core values for eBay, the core values for Asana, the core values for Zoom are similar, but they're also very unique in our own ways. And so for me, it's not just what skills you bring to the table, but who you are as a person and what you're willing to give to an organization and how what we have as organizations matches up with what your desires are for the next couple of years, right? And so that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely a good approach. I guess, Nicole, you're starting it out and it's very new. So it's not like, you have to sort of piggyback off of something. So I'm curious how you think about that.
No, and Cindy, you're so right. It's, a lot of it is, aligned with some of our key partnerships with some schools. But, at Zoom, we've really taken the stance that, instead of calling it your core school list, right, your master list, this is where we're going to be. We have so many options now, to connect. And so we're referring to it as like the nurture list, right? And we can nurture so many relationships and partnerships among, different variety of schools. And we're really tapping into a referral policy, and getting that referral program off the ground for this because we have amazing Zoomies that have these awesome backgrounds and they're alum for such a wide variety of different universities and schools out there. So we've really been leveraging them as well as partners, our hiring teams and other Zoomies to say, hey, help us outreach to the most diverse and unique talent out there. Where do we find, these different skill sets? Because we too are looking for folks, not only that have some of those technical chops, if you will, and can do the job, but for Zoom, it's so important that they are like part of our culture and they fit that model of care here. And so, yeah, that, you can just really broaden your audience that way. And so we look at it as like we're nurturing, multiple relationships in schools. And we still have some of our core strategic partnerships, right, that we're working at a research level as well.
Yeah. And I mean, even when it comes to skill, by the way, as I mentioned before the event started, we just published a university ranking based on skills. And I mean, surprise, surprise, what usually is perceived as top schools in engineering, it's not where some of the most skilled students are, right? Like University of Miami, Ohio, like you would not consider that as one of the top schools to recruit the most skilled talent from, but like when we actually look at the data, when we actually look at the skill set, it turns out they're literally number 2 in the entire country based on a massive data set. So I think while I absolutely agree with you that it's about attracting the right people based on the culture, I also think there's like a deep misconception in the industry that there is a clear sort of skill divide between sort of what's considered a top school and what's not, because that notion is definitely broken in many ways. So, and I know, Tracy, we've partnered together with Asana to do some really cool workshops to actually bring students the awareness of like, how do you kind of demonstrate your skills? How do you do assessments like CodeSignal? But one thing that does miss from schools like this is students from there, they don't often get the opportunity to actually practice this, right? Like if you're from Stanford, Harvard, MIT, everybody's recruiting you, so you get a lot of practice doing it. So I'd love to hear from you. on like, how you came up with the idea and how well has it been working?
Yeah, so similar to everyone here, like we use the virtual experience to just cast a wide net. And as you were saying, we were just inviting everyone and anyone, and it was a chance to go away from that like school specific route and like the traditional route that we've probably all done, but instead just like cast a wide net. And so we wanted to look at people's skill, and we wanted to, measure it on their skill and not what school they came from. And so like here at Asana, like part of our team's mission is to really make sure there's equity in our recruiting process. And so candidates entering the interview process, like particularly those belonging to historically marginalized communities, are often intimidated by the technical assessment. As you said, like they're not the ones at Harvard or MIT, so they're not getting a lot of practice. And so we really wanted to like demystify this part of the interview stage and like really help candidates build the confidence to better understand and prepare for these kind of assessments. And so this is something that, we wanted to give them exposure to CodeSignal because they may not know the platform, know best practices, and then also, build kind of a series to help them continue through the interview process. And so this is something, we work with you guys to create the overall workshop, and then also continue to build kind of for each step of our process. And so to really just make sure that when they first go to take the test, it's not their first time taking it. And like, I love that you guys have the option of taking the practice tests. And I always encourage all of our candidates to just take as many practice tests as possible to just make sure you get comfortable with the platform. It's a new platform, it's new to everyone. And so I think it's amazing that they have the opportunities to do that, and that we're able to partner together to build these workshops to increase the confidence in these students.
Awesome. And I know you do I actually didn't even know before this that like Asana also has like survey functionality built into it, that you can like survey people using Asana. So what's been the overall sentiment? Because I know you do the surveys after each workshop to see how.
Yeah. So we're we're obviously big on using our own products. So we send a feedback survey to everyone who attends their workshop, and it goes right into an Asana project. And I've added you and some of our facilitators to it to make sure that what we're doing is actually productive and efficient. And we have gotten a ton of good feedback. And like part of the piece of the workshop is talking to Asana engineers and sitting with them while going through, the hardest problem. And I think that's an amazing experience, and always the part of the workshop that gets brought up and that people really appreciate. And so I think it's just, there's not, especially in this, virtual environment, there's not a lot of opportunities to sit with experienced engineers and get to know practice problems and get to know what like interviewing is really like. So I appreciate that like we're able to just, again, cast a wide net and invite any students who want to come get the practice. Like, I love that we're able to like create that kind of like platform for them.
Awesome. And Cindy, I know you said that, you also open it up, cast a wide net, get a lot of candidates, but I also know you have a small and mighty team. So I'm always amazed at the volume that you guys handle, but I'd love to hear some of the kind of the approaches and the strategies to actually manage that, because I mean, it's a high volume game. Everybody knows it, especially if you're trying to give opportunity to as many students as possible. It can really become like a management task. So would love to hear how you handle that.
It is huge kudos to my team for managing all of it. One of the things I think internally we as a team focus on is what are we good at, and where can we utilize tools and platforms for efficiency. So when I think of it from that perspective, what we're good at as a team is the relationship building, and whether it's at the partnership level or at the candidate level, and making sure that we humanize the experience, right? But there are other things that are out there that can help us manage the top of the funnel. And so we do utilize a lot of different tools to figure out how do we cast our net the widest possible. And then once we've cast our net, how do we market what we've got open and make it fun and creative and hip, which I am none of the above, but I leverage my team to be able to do that. And then once, individuals are interested and we get into the evaluation process, it's using tools like CodeSignal to say, we know what our bar is. We know what you have to come at a minimum, what you need to come in with from a technical perspective. And so we utilize tools like CodeSignal to be able to, shimmy down that funnel a little bit so that at that point, what our hiring teams are looking at are all individuals, no matter where they come from, no matter what degree they're getting, no matter what school they've come from, what educational background, and then everybody has a level set playing field. And so, not every company has an opportunity to do that. I've been at other companies where we haven't had that unique opportunity to be able to use multiple tools, but I'm forever grateful for the tools that we do use, like CodeSignal, because it allows us to be creative and evaluate internally what that technical bar should be. And then we as a team can layer on the cultural aspects of it as candidates go through the interview process.
To get more specific, how large of a pool are you dealing with? Because I'm sure it's a moving target, but like how many candidates do you?
It depends on our roles. And honestly, you guys probably know more about that than I do from a numbers perspective, but on let's say a software engineering intern position, I mean, we typically have 20,000 applicants on average, I would guess. And then, those are applicants that we've tapped into, that we've cast our net as wide. And then from there, depending on if the individuals are interested, it's probably a little under that actually go in and take CodeSignal from a technical component. So quite a bit. So, it's a lot of hard work on my team's part. We're not necessarily the sexiest of companies out there, but I think my panelist peers here can probably agree is every company has something special. And what I would continue to encourage students to look at, it's not just a numbers game. It's figure out why you want to work at that company, what they have to offer, but at the core, who they are, because you are going to be spending the next couple of years with them. They begin to be, your second family. And so it's more, as Tigran, as you say, it's not just about the resume. We go beyond resumes. It isn't necessarily just about compensation or location. It's about the work that you're going to be doing. And so are you passionate about the work that the company is doing and what and who they are at the core? And if you are, then it could be a great fit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then you say you're not the sexiest of companies. The truth is, every one of those 3 products I've used within the last 7 days. I think that's not too many companies can claim that. Where I think the eBay and I mean, all 3 are massive consumer brands, and I think that plays really heavy into it. But it also puts the responsibility, right? Like you want to bring as diverse of a group as possible to really build a product for as wide of a group as possible. So I think it's awesome. Well, shifting gears a little bit, Nicole, I have a question for you. I've seen many times or in organizations where like early talent university hiring has not been a thing, has not been kind of a core program. And when you introduce it first, there is like, hiring managers are a little bit like uncomfortable. They're like, well, what is it going to take from us? What do you want us to do? Are we going to have to spend a lot of our already, scarce time to train days? Or are you going to have us do 1,000 interviews before we can actually hire somebody? So how do you handle that, hiring management relationship and get them involved enough where you've got what you need, but they're also not being frustrated with the whole process?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, it's been really refreshing coming into Zoom. As I said, I'm coming in to build like our first ever structured, full blown program. But Zoom was hiring interns and new grads sort of on a one-off basis, right? So for me, there was huge advocacy. When I got here, I was getting Zoom chats left and right. I'm like, whoa, I need to get I need some time to acclimate everyone. But it was so exciting to see that like there's a huge appetite to bring in early talent. The folks here truly want to mentor. And I think that's what Zoom was really, smart about. So when I was tapped for the role, I was like, I want to hear more, right? Let's see what you guys are doing. And to find out that they didn't have anything formal in place, that really excited me, to come into the company and be able to design and really bring in some of the best practices that I know from my expertise, but also find out how I could make it very special for Zoom. So that, the partnership and the advocacy, it was there. So for us, what it was is, kind of getting people on the right page and coaching the businesses on the opportune times to go to the market, right? When do we find the talent? And how do we spread that, and cast that net to, be in more places and find more unique talent. And so they've been really receptive, and having a more formal program, it's put more work on their plate for sure, right? We have performance management, timelines, things like that to make sure that, we're giving constant feedback to our interns and our new grads, and they've been really open to it. So that part's been really refreshing to see. But we do include them every step of the way for the hiring pieces of it. So, we've formed what we call our campus volunteer list, and folks want to come with us virtually and help us recruit the best and, get the message out there. What is Zoom's culture like? Why should they, come work here? And I think the biggest, probably the biggest thing for me was making sure that they were educated on, we're building our future pipeline for, our future leaders of our organization, right? So it all starts with an internship, but how do we make sure that we build the folks when they're with us and really show them why we want them here permanently upon graduation? And so they've been really great. They're along for the ride, and they're open to, the new cycles and timelines, where they've had to adjust. And it's been so far so good, very good experience.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Curious from others, Tracy, I guess, how do you handle how much do you get, hiring managers and the rest of the business involved in the process, and how do you manage that relationship?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, it's very much a partnership, and we have a great team of hiring managers that are with us like every step of the way. Whether it's from like determining our headcount and hiring goals to like actually closing candidates, they're really with us as our partner and as our advocate. A pretty amazing thing about like, I guess, the university like historically program here is that because we emphasize mentorship so much at Asana amongst our internship, like we have a lot of engineers who are now leaders who joined as interns maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And so totally echo what you said, Nicole, like we are building the future leaders, and that's very much present at Asana because our program has historically been a little bit longer. And so a lot of those leaders come back to us and like, how can we continue to build this program? And so we have huge advocacy across engineering, and it's nice because they really speak for us and they help us get more engineers involved in terms of like our workshops, and really just helping us in kind of encouraging the rest of the team to get involved and be motivated to help with all of our interviewing. It's a mad rush, of course, but really just in partnering with us the whole way.
Love it. It's definitely a partnership, even though sometimes hiring managers don't see it that way and think about it as it's only a recruiting job. But I feel like it's on recruiting organizations to do that education and to show them that it's actually their job. You're helping them do it versus the other way around. So, Cindy, from your side, anything different from how you handle the hiring manager piece? And eBay is a massive organization, so I'm sure there is a ton of moving pieces when it comes to this.
Definitely a ton of moving pieces, but I echo what Tracy and Nicole said. One thing I try to communicate often to hiring teams is that it's a you and me equals success equation, right? This isn't a university recruiting has, excuse me, early in career talent on some tree somewhere in the country that we can just go and pluck them off and they're going to be awesome human beings. Like, this is a true partnership. It's a true partnership from what are your desires, hiring managers, in terms of skill sets that you need. Do you, to both Nicole and Tracy's point, do you have the bandwidth as a leader in your organization, or does your team have the ability to continue to develop? Because we can go out and find the best and the brightest, most applicable person for your role. excuse me. However, you are the ones that are going to have to train them once you're there. So it's definitely a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about bottlenecks a little bit. Let's kind of shift it a little bit to, I guess, what do you see as the biggest bottlenecks when it comes to doing this, doing it at scale, doing it well, bringing diverse candidates, handling the entire process, the entire volume, usually with a very small team. Where are the biggest bottlenecks? Tracy, maybe, you can kick us off.
Yeah. So as like we've all mentioned, volume is definitely one of the biggest bottlenecks. There's our teams are, not big enough to handle the volume. As Cindy mentioned, 20,000 plus is crazy. And so it's the volume and it's all at once. And so like, luckily, as Cindy mentioned, like we partner with you guys to really get through that first step. And so, we don't have to be looking through 5,000, 10,000 resumes, and we can just shoot out the CodeSignal to everyone. So that I know saves us all time. Another big like bottleneck for us as like a small company is like our interviewer capacity. This is early career recruiting is so seasonal, and it's like if you can't get a candidate in the next few weeks, then you might lose them. And so it's really just being strategic in how you're using your limited amount of interviewers, and also, the bandwidth of the rest of the recruiting team. We all have amazing recruiting coordinators who are working day and night to get these candidates scheduled. And I think just, not having enough hours in the day. And so really being strategic with the time that we do have. And so one thing that we've implemented is batch days. And so this is where we can really push. We have specific days that candidates are interviewed. The interviewers are already lined up. And so it's more so like an initial push so that it saves us time in the future.
Makes sense. Any comments, maybe Cindy, any thoughts since you mentioned?
Same. We've been instituting batch days or interview days. I think every company might call them slightly different. I'd like to think that the only thing our hiring managers are doing are interviewing our candidates. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case on top of their day job. So I think trying to set expectations early, to Tracy's point, what we do as a function within a talent acquisition organization is very cyclical. So making sure that once positions and hiring managers are identified, that we're educating them around, timing, the cyclicalness of it, so that we can manage the volume and setting expectations up front, and then partnering with them through the process. I think if a team has the ability to do it, doing those batch interview days are awesome, because it is 1 to 2 days perhaps of just, every manager, every interview slate is filled with at least 8 to 10 candidates. And then, within a 48-hour process, typically by the end of the week, we're making hiring decisions. So it tends to be a great experience for the managers if we do it right at eBay. And then also, I can only imagine it's probably a pretty decent experience for candidates as well, because they know where they stand within a fairly short time frame. So, I think it just depends on the teams. But the bottleneck is definitely the volume. But, that is university recruiting, right? In a nutshell, it's how do you get the best, the brightest, the most diverse talent through the funnel in an equitable, tangible, cultural manner that best suits them as candidates. Because for me, it's always the candidate first, we come second. And then also making sure that our managers have the ability to participate in that process and have a say in how this is going to work.
Absolutely. Well, let's do some Q&A. For anyone who hasn't noticed in the audience, there is a Q&A feature, and I already see 2 questions posted there. Cindy, I know you typed out an answer for one of them, but for anybody who hasn't noticed, the question says, do you give every applicant that wants to take the assessment, or is there a selection from the company before that based on what? So essentially, do you kind of put the resumes, the applicants through some sort of an initial filter before doing an assessment, or is it literally going out to everyone?
So let me clarify. We do, but only from the perspective to make sure that they're viable candidates. And by viable candidates, if you are submitting an application for an internship role, you cannot be graduating this academic year. So we assess that piece. Also, you know, if there are candidates that have applied to a software engineering internship role, but perhaps are not a computer science major like myself, we don't set them out, but we may pull them out of the main batch to just inquire a little bit further, right? I was a sociology and a political science major, but perhaps I just loved coding and I learned it on my own and I'm a kick-ass coder. So, you know, for me, that type of candidate would still be applicable, but we just do a double check there. But for those that are computer science majors applying to a computer science, computer engineering, math, statistics, you know, pretty much anything that lines with the coding aspect, we funnel them through the CodeSignal to see where they sit against the bar.
Makes sense. Next question in the Q&A says, what are the things you have seen historically that consistently chase away the best applicants? Barriers, conversations, processes. Curious to hear if anybody has any thoughts.
I'll answer it from my perspective, Tigran. I think what we've seen along the way is, I don't know if this is even the right word, but it's inauthenticity. So not being authentic, not being transparent throughout the process. And I think, you know, my team strives every day to accomplish both, to say, this is what we're looking for. These are the skill sets that we need, and here's the process. And then in every bit of the way, you know, making sure that we're, you know, we're not 100% there yet, but this is a goal to try and make sure we let candidates know along the way how they're doing and whether or not they're still being considered. And I think that's the core of our DNA. And I can only imagine, you know, for Tracy, for Asana, and Nicole for Zoom, it's probably similar. It's just, you know, we ooze who we are as a company. That's why we choose to be here. And, you know, on any given day, I get excited to talk about the company and what we're about, and trying to be as transparent as possible throughout the applicant process.
Said that so well, Cindy. I definitely agree. And I was trying to think of like other barriers that I've come across. I mean, I think one thing just to be mindful of is, you know, often we're like, it's fall season, we got to get our jobs posted, right? And being very thoughtful and take that extra step to look at your job descriptions and how they may be viewed from, you know, the student applicant standpoint. And you may get folks a little bit like an aversion to your jobs, and it may chase them away if you don't, you know, really look at the job descriptions and make sure they are representational of what you need, and that you don't have something in there that, you know, maybe you don't need, that is maybe making people think like, oh, this, you know, I'm not going to qualify, so I'm not even going to apply, or, you know, this isn't the role for me. So I think really being thoughtful about your job descriptions, because as we often do, we're hiring in batch, right? And we have, you know, a requisition that we post and we filter and pipeline, like you said, Cindy, 20,000 plus folks to. And I think that's an important step to, like, you know, just make sure you kind of do that checks and balances on those, because I think you can lose people along the way just in that one portion of the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely ditto what Nicole and Cindy's saying. I think one thing that I've seen, especially like in the last year, so I totally agree with transparency. I think that's a huge thing, especially again in this virtual world. Another thing that I encourage everyone to promote is to be flexible. I think we're all living in a strange world right now, and everyone reacts differently to different things. And I know, like, speaking with candidates, I've heard companies that are giving students crazy deadlines, and everyone is going through different situations. And, you know, while we're all in very well structured companies, I encourage everyone to just be flexible with your candidates, flexible with people's timelines, deadlines, what have you. Because especially there's so much going on in this crazy world that, you know, a little flexibility from a company is very much appreciated.
Yeah. And I guess I see the horizontal view of this, because obviously and we as a company work with a lot of recruiting organizations. And I actually wanted to echo a little bit of what Cindy said around the role of recruiting in this, right? I think is often confused that the role of recruiting shouldn't really be, I don't know, figuring out whose resume looks good or figuring out how to schedule stuff. The role of recruiting is to recruit people, and the way you recruit people by truly being excited about where you work. Recruiting is like the #1 cheerleader in the company, and humans can sense it. I mean, we're bad at evaluating resumes or even interviewing people oftentimes. We're really good at reading other people's true emotions. Like I can talk to you, and if you're not truly excited about something, I can tell. Like I can feel it, right? I can feel in your how you talk about it, how you present it, just the tone of voice and everything. And I think that's often gets lost in translation of how important it is for the recruiting team to truly believe in the company and be excited about it, because that excitement is contagious and you can really spread it, and people feel it. Whether they recognize it or not, they feel it one way or another. So it's important. I'm gonna wrap it up. I know we've got tons of places to be, and I really, really do appreciate you all being here, spending this time of your busy days to spread the knowledge. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, the audience, for being here. And recording of this should be available as well in a week or so. So for anyone who didn't make it, they can still check it out later. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the week.